All right. Good evening, everyone. The time is 18:05, and I think it's about time we got the ball rolling. Thank you all for coming. My name is Jemima Chela. I am the Publicity Secretary of the Internship Committee, and I will be one half of your moderators today. I'm joined by my lovely co-host and very good friend, Domisa Musonda. Hi, Domisa.
Hi, Jemima. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm really excited and a bit nervous, but
Yeah,
I'm
me too, actually.
I'm excited. How are you?
Right. I'm all right, thanks.
All right. So today we are graced by three extraordinary panelists, and I don't mean to be dramatic or anything, but if we checked for the definition of success, you would find all three of these panelists there. You would find their names, their pictures, their LinkedIn profiles. You would find them. Um, And before we get into the discussion, we have two golden rules, right? So the first rule is to always mute your mic unless you've been asked to unmute your mic if you have a question or if you would just like to hear your voice. So please always keep your mic muted. And then the second golden rule is to leave your messages in the chat. I repeat, leave your messages in the chat. If you have any questions, if you have any feedback, or you just like to say hi, please leave your messages in the chat, all right? So with that said, it's time to get into our main discussion. At this point, I'd like to call on Domisa Musonda to introduce our first panelist.
Okay, thank you, Jemima. Hello, everyone, once more. Our first speaker for today is actually a very familiar face, and most people that are members of UNZABECA might know him. He served as the UNZABECA president in 2020, and we were actually very pleased to host him for this, for this webinar. Yeah, so our first speaker for today is Mulenga Siame. Mulenga, we are very pleased to have you today, and thank you for agreeing to this. We know you're probably very busy, but thank you so much for sparing the time to come and have this conversation with us today.
Thank you for having me. I couldn't miss having an opportunity to speak with Jito and Lombe.
Okay, right. So I think we can get right into it now. And I'm going to start with something that I'm sure most people can relate to. So as young people, we're first exposed to, a world that focuses on academic achievement more than anything else, right? So we're placed in schools that make us believe that a large portion of success is attributed to high test scores, GPA scores, and everything else in those lines. And where there hasn't been much emphasis, if at all any, placed on the need for self-development for both current and future purposes. So because of that, most of us, grow up with a mindset that makes us believe that everything else that contributes to success is just secondary. So we have this idea that the one thing needed to be successful in life is to have this high score and whatnot. And then we forget everything else that's important, things like self-development. So we forget things that's like self-development that are of course necessary for career development as well. So because I feel like this is something that's sidelined, I would like to start from self-development itself. So could you just help us understand what the importance of self-development is in advancing your career?
Well, is that my question?
Yes, it is. So what is, maybe let me just rephrase it. What is the importance of self-development in advancing your career?
Okay, I'll probably, relate this to my story. So I'll probably just go back a bit. So when I came to UNZA, I had this vision that I'll probably end up as a tutor or become a lecturer because every smart guy ends up being that. And also at the same time, I was thinking of being a tutor and also being successful. And so I thought, that would be the case. So I was super lucky to have had people really sort of like redefine that for me, and also redefine what self-development was for me. And I came to realize that, well, school is very important, because some of us wouldn't have reached this far if we went to school. I couldn't play soccer, I couldn't do anything, so school was the only place I could sort of like do the things I love to do. And now when I look at where I've come from, and even in my class, it's something that I think I used to spend a lot of time doing. So my own definition of self-development is, I think, sort of like investing in things that will differentiate you. And I've always been a person that, always believed in that. And through that self-development, I was able to see things or people who my peers couldn't see, who are very valuable. For example, a lot of people knew Jito, and people talk to him about different things, and I don't want to put him on the line, but I saw him and other people as a way to sort of like advance my career. And truth be told, I used to spend a lot of time when I was at Kukula with him from morning, every chance I got. So that, for me, interacting with people sort of like improved my perception, also improved my ability to compete. I spend a lot of time reading. Last night I was out, so today at 6 I woke up, I was reading a book. So that's sort of my own view about self-development.
All right, thank you so much for that, Mulenga. That was one clear answer. Thank you so much for that. So we live in a day and age where we can learn any skill, right? But from your experience, we'd love to know how you identify which skills to pick up to advance your career and how you pick them up. So how do you identify and acquire new skills to help your career?
Again, it goes back to what you want in life. I've always envied being in the investment space. So anything to do with investments was something I was particularly interested in. And everyone that knows me would tell you that I would spend majority of the time listening to that, the people I interacted with. So my world sort of becomes around, it's mostly biased, but I would still listen to politics, I would still listen to all these things, because at the end of the day, they all fall into one bracket. But sort of like identifying what you want, I really did identify that at a young age, and sort of strategically position myself with people that had the same, people that came, ahead of me and were sort of like doing those kinds of things. So yeah, I have majority of my friends. Last week we went to play golf, and particularly I was interested to meet people in the private equity firm, people doing investment banking, and my friends were interested in other things. So that for me, the fact that I know what I want to do, I sort of also know what sort of people I want to interact with. It's kind of bad sometimes, but it helps me know what is happening, who to approach, and who to talk to when I want something.
Okay, I'm actually happy that you've talked about interactions with people and how you like to talk to different people and interact, because actually I was talking to someone who mentioned to me that, if ever you found yourself in a situation where you needed tips on networking and reaching out to people, Mulenga Siame is your go-to guy, because he's literally the networking king, That's something that I was told.
No, I want to clarify that. So I was super lucky to have worked with someone who I consider probably the biggest person that knows how to network. Even in America, I don't think I've met anyone so far who can really network at that level. And we're very pleased to have this man over here. Most people won't know, but I worked with him. I saw how he interacted with people, and I kind of learned that. I'm a person that sort of like, I love smart and driven people. And probably that's how I've grown up. So Jito is someone I always talk about him in my story, you know. But I learned that from him. He probably, you know, he probably taught me all these things. So yeah, but in effect, I love talking to people. I've discovered that I took a test last week and I've discovered I'm outgoing. So yeah, so I think being the fact that I'm not an introvert sort of like helps with that.
Okay, that's very nice to know. Okay, so still on networking, Mulenga, how, what, in your own words, why do you think networking is important, and what would you say are the do's and don'ts of networking?
Okay. Firstly, I'll mention one thing. I have
Mhm.
5 internship opportunities while I was in school, and the first one was with some boutique investment firm that I was supposed to be working with. But I just worked there for a month. I got an internship with a portfolio company under Kukula, and that was all because I skipped class. So Bob and I skipped class and attended this forum at Intercontinental, and it really opened my doors. It really did open my doors. The people who really did very well in class, and I got so many opportunities because I knew who to talk to. I can't be in America right now if I did not certain people in Zambia. That's just the truth, because I won't go into detail because some of the things are very, very private, but I have had people help me with from everything, you know, from everything. One particular incident was that the time I was getting on a plane, I decided there was something wrong with with the ticket, and I couldn't travel to America the same day I was going. And I was like, I have to go back home. But I remember, like, I know a lot of people who I can actually talk to. So I just called one person, and within 2 minutes, someone bought me a ticket. So for me, and this is not someone who I could say is my relative. These are people who I've met, who I know I could always call and say, hey, I'm looking for an internship. I'm looking for all these things. And so for me, networking has been a huge part of my life. It's probably been the biggest driver, apart from also, reaching out. The do's and don'ts, body language is very keen. I learned this, you go to a conference, say hi to people, just smile. That's something I practically do. Yesterday, I met someone who is managing like $5 billion company, private equity firm at a Ferrari dealership. My friends just said, hey, Mulenga, this is what we network from. So we went there, and the different, some people, you could tell that this guy just looks like he's just here to drink and you don't want to talk to him. So I could tell from that, the conversation was really great, got some really good connections from there. So shooting your shot, it's like a go. You see, okay, can I do this? Can I do this? Yeah, anyways, I always use my intuition. Yeah. I can see Rhoda is laughing, but yeah.
All right, thank you so much for that. I hope everyone is taking notes, because I'm definitely taking notes and learning a whole lot from you, Mulenga. Okay, so there's this thing where, like, each time we bring people to talk about jobs and internships and whatnot, everyone is saying you need to get a LinkedIn account, right? Everyone is talking about LinkedIn and how you need to put yourself out there and use social media more. So no one really gets into, I mean, they all tell us, oh, you need to create a LinkedIn account and whatnot, but they don't really go into detail in terms of how you go about doing this, and then you create your account and then what. So how best do you use your social media to network? And is LinkedIn the only platform, or is it the best platform to use? If it's not the only platform, what other platforms would you recommend yourself? What has worked for you?
And the first one was Twitter. The fact that I could reach out to Jito, the fact that I could see Caesar Siwale, the fact that I probably met one of the richest people in Zambia through Twitter. Yeah, so that would really work for me. LinkedIn, I met some of the American people here who've also been quite instrumental in me transitioning to the American community. LinkedIn was quite instrumental in that regard. But I would say I'm not very tech savvy. So I'm practically not very much on social media. I choose to stay away so I can focus on some of the things I need to do. I spend a lot of time thinking about here's what I always tell myself. So I've got something in my room. I ask myself, would I employ myself knowing what I know about myself, and what ways and what platforms can I use to sort of like, get me to where I want to be. So I have certain things I do on LinkedIn. I have specific times I'm on LinkedIn. I'm not on Twitter right now, partly because I have a really huge mandate on my schedule. I'm only on LinkedIn. Twitter, I would use it for investing. So I'm in a club where we're always checking on news and also checking on certain people who I love to see their tweets and sort of like getting that. So I think Twitter was quite instrumental in following the right people that are always, so you just go in your probably search engine, type finance, bring you different people. That's what I used to do, business. So you see people that post all those things, people that talk about motivation, self-development. And so I use that. LinkedIn was mostly to, when I meet someone, it's always good when you meet someone, can I get your card? Then you connect with them further. I'm particularly using LinkedIn more because, so my school has got a huge alumni base on LinkedIn, people are working on Wall Street. So I need to use LinkedIn more to reach out to people, have coffee with them, and do all these other things. So I'm using LinkedIn for that sort of venture.
Right.
To delete Facebook account because of something else. Yeah.
All right. So you've spoken about going to a Ferrari dealership. You've also spoken about going to Intercontinental Hotel. So I'm very curious. How do you position yourself to be in those areas? How do you find yourself in those places?
So with the Intercontinental event, linked Twitter. I saw this event. It was actually going at $1,600, and as a student, I didn't even know where to get that amount. But what I told myself was that I know I can do anything, and that's probably one of the understated statement in the world. I told Bob, I'm like, bro, we need to visit this event because it's probably going to be a huge number of people that were interested to network with. And it's like $1,600, and I'm sure by then the dollar was trading around 20 quarter.
Yeah.
So what I did is like I was very proactive. I emailed the guys who are organizing the event. I noticed that they had, and I actually met Jito. They had follow-up. So there was an event which was free. They were just trying to attend that same event. So what I did is I attended that event and followed the guys who were organizing it and told them that I wanted to help them organize it, just be volunteer work. And I'm impressed that I did that. So what they did is that they asked me, oh, do you want to really do it? If you want to do this, find the people that you want to come with. I'm like, and that's how I picked Bob and Pano. Oh, I actually picked another guy called Chad, who actually. So we attended an event that was worth $1,600, right, for free.
Wow.
Decided to, yeah.
So I'm sure, I hope you guys are picking up some notes. Just offer to work for free. Offer to work for free, because that's how you make the connections, guys.
Another thing that's probably very important, and I learned this from Jito, is that so my BC money, I don't know if you guys do BC. I used the money some of that money to I started an online course which has helped me in my class right now from financial. I use that money. Also, I was saving every month to have coffee, and I was always practically went to certain places. I never went to any kind of bar. So my second internship, I actually got my second internship at Chicago's.
Okay.
Team. Yeah, I had a meeting. I had a meeting at Chicago's with Lombe's brother. When right before I met the guy who actually became my boss. Yeah. Just doing that.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving us insights on networking and self-development. We really appreciate it so much. Thank you so much. Um, and if anyone has questions for Mulenga that you'd like to be answered, please leave them in the chat section. We will get to them at the end of the session. Thank you so much. At this point in time, I will be introducing our second guest. His name is Lombe Chibesakunda Jr. And he is the head of the Pro-Based Data team and the Chief Technical Officer at Financial Insight Zambia. So I know that some people have been wondering about Financial Insight Zambia, what it is, this internship program. We'll get back to that later in the webinar. So please don't go anywhere. All right. Then he holds a Bachelor of Law degree from the University of Exeter in the United Kingdom. He is an experienced entrepreneur in the Zambian market, and he focuses on using data analysis to help businesses make decisions. Last but not the least, he is also an innovator in the financial news sector. Good evening, Lombe Chibesakunda Jr. Hello.
Good evening. Good evening. How are you doing? How's everyone doing?
I'm good, and I'm sure everyone is excited. We're all doing well. So,
sorry.
hello?
I'd just like to thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor.
We're so grateful to be in your virtual vicinity. This really means a lot to us. You might not know, but it means a lot to us. So to get into our discussion, as the internship committee, we like saying words like job and career, and sometimes we just throw them around anyhow. Like 1 minute we're talking about a job when we mean a career. Next minute we're talking about a career when we mean, a job. So what's the difference between a job and a career, and how would you distinguish between the two?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very interesting question to begin with. And ironically, there was a friend of mine who just a friend who likes to post very motivational quotes. He was talking about a similar subject very, very recently. And he was talking about situations in which people who undertake careers, or jobs, which might not necessarily be what necessarily they want to do or necessarily their aspiration, but it's something that they have to do in order to, let's say, based on their situation, they have to support their people and they have to do what you have to do. So that's what I believe a job is. There's nothing dishonorable about having a job, but a job is more of something that you have to do as more of a means to an end. So a job is just pretty much as a source of income. And you can have multiple jobs, as many people do, especially in developed nations, when they're struggling to take care of their families. But a job is essentially just it's a means to an end. But in comparison, a career, and as Mulenga touched on this briefly in terms of how he was talking about, you have to be willing to work for free. And if you have a career, if you have that certain aspiration, it's working towards a certain goal that you want to ascertain. And it doesn't matter how long it takes you to ascertain that goal, but a career is working towards that specific goal, working towards that specific dream. So I'd say a career is more of a collection of different roles that you have on your path to what your dream situation is. So sometimes, let's say, for example, if you're looking at venture capital, you can have a career in venture capital and you can go through a variety of different roles, but they're all working together towards the same path, which is for you to own your own investment firm. And that's a good example of how a career, I would say, defines. A career is what defines you. A career is what defines your aspirations, but a job is more of what you need to do as a means to an end. I'd say both are as honorable as each other, because some people's job turn into careers. But yeah, I'll say that's where I'd pick the distinction.
All right, thank you for that. Now there's something I remember we had you earlier during the year for the Economy and Me, the Economy and You show that's on UNZABECA, on Unza Radio. Please forgive me, on Unza Radio. And something that I find really remarkable is how you went to school, you have an entire law degree, but you're here doing finance and you're in the tech business. And that, to me, that's very fascinating. So I would like to ask how you are able to find the right career path for you. How did you know that you got the degree in law, but this is finance is where you're supposed to be?
Yeah.
How did you know that?
Nah, I mean, thanks for asking the question, and thanks for the kind words as well in reference to my career path. When it came to my decision to leave law, it was more of how do I say? I used law as, ironically, I was just talking about a job, but law was more of a means to an ends to myself, and you need a bit more context of my kind of story. So I've always kind of been an entrepreneurial guy, and in school I used to, because I went to boarding school in the UK. I was lucky enough to like gain a place at a school over there, and for like my secondary schooling. And when I was younger there, I would bring over bottles of Fanta and like pin pops, because like there's sugar limits on foods in the UK, and I would like sell out. I would just literally like sell anything that I could. So I just love entrepreneurism. So I started my first business when I was 18, and I think I mentioned it on the radio show. And that kind of taught me a lot of lessons. So that experience taught me a lot of lessons. But it also taught me, because I'd always wanted to go to school to study like business management or economics, because that's what I'd always been obsessed with. But like what that first experience taught me is that there's so much more to life, and there's so many more different aspects that you may not necessarily need to think of. You may not necessarily think of that may be applicable to your life. So I kind of decided that, okay, this law thing can be something that would help me, because it means that I'll be able to understand all of the documentation that I'll be able to work with. I'll be able to like kind of have that mindset. And if I can go to one of the best law schools in the world and like be the best, like within the rest, like kind of prove myself amongst the rest of them, and then still come back and do the things that I love, it's a good like fallback plan. At the same time, it also was like a good challenge for me. And it's something that has helped me throughout my business career. Now that I'm back, and like it's something that also, when I need a bit of extra cash, I can also do some contracts and so on and so forth. So for me, when I was doing law, even to my lecturers, to everybody, I was very clear, this is not what I intend to do as my career. But at the end of the day, I still did it to my very best, because at the end of the day, I still had to have that ambition. I still had to have that. It was still a challenge that I needed to overcome, so that I could fully pursue my dreams.
All right. And in addition to identifying your career path, how do you plan on how you're going to get to your destination? How do you plan your career, and what has helped you plan out yours?
I think one thing that has helped me plan out my career, and I think one thing that everybody should always take account of, is reflection, like constant reflection. I think a lot of people think it won't just come to you. You just have to really just learn from your mistakes, like go into everything completely full on. And then when you make a mistake, be absolutely honest with yourself and learn as quickly as possible. And that's kind of what has helped me in terms of like when I've been pursuing my careers, because I've learned a lot about different things, and I've learned a lot about myself in pursuing my careers, and then the many failures that I've had in pursuing my various careers, because I've tried a lot of things. As you can tell, I've done law stuff, I've done tech stuff, I've done business. So I've tried a lot of things, but I'm still very young, and it's still something that what intertwines all of them are the life lessons that I learned. So it's that experience of trying. There's nothing that beats the experience of trying. That's what I think. And that's the only way that you can learn. Because at the end of the day, if you're sitting at home, you're only going to move as far forward as you push yourself.
All right, that's true. And just a little while earlier, you mentioned something about you going to school, doing your law program, and you saying, this is not for me. But do you think that formal education really matters? Because for some of us who have been around UNZA for quite some time, we had to do this quota system. And I know that there's someone who perhaps wanted to do economics, but has found themselves doing something else. And yeah, okay, I'm not going to mention any programs, but then they found themselves doing something else. Do you think that formal education really matters when trying to advance your career? Does it really matter, or you just need to know one or two things in order to progress in your career?
Yeah, I think obviously you can do what you want to do unless it's a very professional career. So let's say, for example, medicine, the obvious ones which you literally need the technical, degree to be able to pursue that career. So like the medicines, the dentistry, obviously degrees are essential for those kind of things. But what I would say is the real value of a degree is steadily decreasing because of the amount of information that is now more readily available. People are able, if you really want to learn, you can learn if you do want. But at the end of the day, I feel like a degree certificate is something that you can never underestimate the value of. Because at the end of the day, when you're hustling, when you're an entrepreneur, when you're like trying to get to where you need to go, you need as many things as possible that can help you get through that door, and that can help that person turn your no into a yes. And at the end of the day, in the world that we live in, and the world that is there for, I would say, for the next 5 to 10 years, a degree certificate is something that is an enabler of that. So what I would suggest to a lot of people is to get that certificate, but remember that that's not the be all and end all, because there are many people who have fantastic degree certificates who are sitting at home with those same certificates and aren't doing anything. The real world is the true equalizer, and you have to now take as many advantages as you can in pursuing your dreams. But I think that a degree can be used as a means to an end as well. So in terms of making sure that when you choose your degree, it is something that will actually assist you in what you want to do. So let's say if you want to be a business person, you can study a computer science degree and say that I want to learn the full technical aspect of tech because the business that I want to start will likely involve tech. So even though you may not necessarily be coding every single day, you'll still be able to look over flow charts. You'll still be able to manage the people who will be. So I think that a degree is such a good step into the door that it's worth it, but pick your degree to be something that you admire. But if you're in that situation, like you've said, where just life throws you lemons and like you end up being put in the wrong situation, I've often found that there's never been a situation where I've initially felt like, okay, I've been disadvantaged, and then it's something that you can easily pivot. I think Mulenga touched on this previously before, but you have to have a mentality that says that I can never be defeated by anything. So whenever something diverts your path, at the end of the day, it might actually just be leading you onto a straighter road. So whatever diversions you get into, you just have to keep consistent with your effort and your mentality, because life will change. Things will always change around you and you can't control that. But the only thing you can control is the amount of effort that you're putting into those things. So I understand that situations like that can be tough, but it will only get you down if you let it get.
Right. Thank you so much for that, Lombe. So at this point, I'm going to go back to something that Mulenga had talked about, a topic that Mulenga had talked about, and that's development, right? And I believe that we can all agree that work ethic is a crucial component of being successful. But then could you kindly tell us how to develop the right work ethic and attitude?
Actually, that's a very interesting question, because I like to think back to my days when I was younger and I was studying for exams, and I'm actually somebody who I have like a low attention span, but not to the extent where I like working hard, but like I can focus on one thing for a very intensely for a very short amount of time, but then that develops and like I get really bored very easily. So it's very hard for me to focus on one thing and technically do that hard work. But again, I think it just goes back to mentality and kind of your surroundings. You kind of have to have people around you who motivate you to do better. Because for me, I always surround myself, and I like to put myself in situations where I have to do my absolute best, because it's just kind of like, if I don't do my absolute best, then I'm going to be my own worst critic, and I'll know that I'll let the people that are around me down. So it's about knowing how you work, and it's part of that reflection, knowing how you work, knowing what works best for you. Because some people work hard late at night. Some people need only 10 minutes to do a perfect essay, but if they spend an hour on it, they overthink. So first you have to figure out how you work, and everybody has their own different mechanisms on how they work and how to get themselves to work hard. For example, I like to I remember when there was a few years ago, I stopped reading for a while. So then what I started to do is I would eat a bar of chocolate. I'd only allow myself to eat a bar of chocolate after like 2 hours of reading or something like that. Like something, I'll give myself something nice after reading for a while. It's always about fine tuning your habits. Actually, that's one thing I miss. Your habits. Like the best way to actually look at your self engineering is to look at your habits. There's one book called The Power of Habit. There's one book called Atomic Habits. If you look at those methods of reprogramming yourself and looking at what are your habits. Sorry?
Sorry about that. I think somebody had their mic on.
Oh, that's fine. No, either way, it allows me to reset what I was saying. Either way, what I was saying was that I essentially chose to reprogram myself to focus on my habits. What are my good habits? What are my bad habits? And what are the things that allow me to adopt habits? And then when I look at how I can adopt, like, let's say a good habit of the habit of liking to work. Let's say I like to every time I come back home, I like to work for an extra hour or two. Eventually it feels weird not to work for an extra hour or two when you come back home, because it's just a good habit you've installed in yourself. So just focus on reprogramming your habits. And I think that's a great way that I found to reprogram myself to have a hard working mentality. But every person is different. It's just about knowing yourself and taking that time to really study yourself. And I would suggest reading a lot into like human psyche in terms of how you can get yourself to like essentially like understand your own habits essentially.
Very interesting. You know what? Actually, at this point, I feel like you've pretty much touched on everything. I don't think there's anything that you've left out. I feel satisfied with every answer that you've given, to be quite honest. And same goes for Mulenga. But then there's still one thing left. So we've identified our career, we have a plan, we have our first job. But then what are some of the do's and don'ts of getting your first job? Because we have knowledge in everything, but then we still don't know what the do's and don'ts of your first job are. So yeah.
I think your first job, the most interesting things that I've actually read about your first job, a lot of it goes into the dynamics of the workplace. And it's an interesting, I think Mulenga touched on it quite a lot. I keep on referring to him, but he obviously has a very brilliant mind. He touched on the matter of networking, for example. You can convince yourself in your head that if you go into your office and you're the hardest working person and you get everything done on time, you're going to be the person that goes the furthest. But that's not necessarily always the case, because at the end of the day, if you're in, like, let's say a business that's like venture capital is very much about like your personalization, how much people trust you. Are they willing to like really give their business to you, a percentage of their business to you? Because sure, you can work hard, but is this someone that you really want to like work with for the rest of your life? Because at the end of the day, you get to a point where you realize there's a lot of talented people around there. So what is that key differentiator for you? So I would say that once you've gotten the first skill, which nailed down, which is the hard work, because you need to get that nailed down first before you actually, if you want to achieve success in life, get that hard work ethic done. But once you make it a habit and it's not hard for you to work hard, I think from there you look into the things like networking, you look into the dynamics of how to properly address your the workplace etiquette, how to address the people that are within your workplace. Sometimes you, like, for example, I found myself, because obviously I'm in data analytics, and it obviously gets like really interesting, because sometimes I'll go into a company's data and I'll find like, oh my God, this is so interesting. Like, this is a perfect insight. And I'll want to rush or go to like give my findings as quickly as possible. But at the end of the day, I work in a workplace where there is protocol. So no matter how brilliant my idea is, always know your office protocol, because at the end of the day, that is something that can be used against you. No matter how brilliant you are, you have to always make sure that you know the rules and you can follow the rules. And then from there on, don't suppress your genius, don't suppress your creativity, but at the same time, don't let a lack of understanding of other people and other people's rules be that downfall. So from my point of view, I feel like understanding workplace etiquette, understanding the workplace protocols, and understanding the importance of networking are the first things that you have to conquer once you enter the workplace. But when you're entering the workplace, the first thing that you have to bring in before you even get there is a hard work ethic.
Okay, thank you so much once more for that, Lombe. At this point, we've talked to 2 of our 3 guests, and we are going to get into the last part of our discussion today and introduce our 3rd guest. So our 3rd guest is Jito Kayumba, as you probably all know by now, and he's a partner at Kukula Capital, which is a pioneering venture capital firm. He's also an investment professional who holds competencies in business strategy and corporate governance. He sits on the boards of Airtel and Zambia breweries, as well as other companies based in South Africa, Kenya, and the United Kingdom. So Jito holds an undergraduate degree in political science and economics from Concordia University in Montreal, Canada, with a specialization in public policy and corporate governance. He also holds an MBA in leadership and strategy and is the chancellor of the DRIP University.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Domisa. So before we begin, I'm sure like everyone else, when I hear drip, I'm thinking about the Jordans. I'm thinking about the Durak and all of that swag. So Mr. Jito Kayumba, what is the Drip University all about? And most importantly, what inspired the Drip University?
Hi, everyone. So thanks for having me. So first of all, I just want to say, the last 2 speakers were just incredible. I've learned so much. And that's one thing we should never stop doing, is learning and knowing that there's so much knowledge out there, information that you could use to further yourself. And you're never too successful or too accomplished or too knowledgeable to stop learning things. Otherwise you lose it, right? The mind is like a muscle. You need to continue working it. Otherwise you atrophy and you lose it. Now,
Right.
Going back to your point about the whole concept and when people think about drip, they think about clothing, they think about style, fashion, certain amount of swagger. Let me tell you, I don't look at it that way. I look at what happens. How do you feel when you're dressed nice, when you feel good, right? You have a certain amount of confidence. And to me, it's all about confidence. And where does confidence come from? I feel like the more competent you are, the more you are goal-oriented, the more you are holistically grounded in your spirit, in your finances, in your appreciation of life, love, relationships, you name it, right? Because life is a mixed bag. It's good to have a good balance of all those factors. And I feel like that's what enables you to ooze that sauce that enables you to drip, right? So you don't even have to be dripped out, as some people would say, in terms of clothing. It's about what we've just witnessed from Lombe and Mulenga. It's knowledge and the feeling you get from appreciating and taking it in and using that, applying it in your life. You feel amazing. And I think nothing is more satisfying than having clarity on your path, even if you haven't made it yet, but you have a good sense of where you're going, what you want to accomplish, what you want to achieve, the way you walk up to. So when Mulenga talks about networking, right? You smile, you show up, you network. there's a certain energy you need to have, right? And then that energy is one that includes confidence, competence,
Mm-hmm.
and execution and taking initiative. To me, that's what it's about. So when you talk about it being a university, because I was I had not was, I still am. I mean, I continuously share things, whether it be through Twitter or through other platforms like this, of course, and any media outlet that would give the opportunity. I like to share information, and what that does, it's like a lecture, and people are students, and I've a good number of mentees, and they would always occasionally say, professor, teach us a thing or two. So I said, you know what, I'm going to call this Drip University, but I think it's often misunderstood, but it's really not about, physical. It's not about anything material. It's about the swagger that comes with knowledge and the pursuit of success. So yeah.
Right. And what inspires you to be exceptional? What inspires you to continue pursuing that success? And how can you develop excellence within yourself?
Okay. It's a loaded question, but I'll try to break it down. And I feel like sometimes when we look at things in life, we need to have a strong level of clarity and understanding of the various moving parts. Um, the world is full of noise. It's full of distractions. We want to do 10 different things. We're affected by the opinion of this person and so on and so forth. The clearer we are with what we want to do, the better. So what I like to do, and the reason I'm saying this, I'm trying to set context. So you've got the element of exceptional, right? You said, what inspires one to be exceptional. I think the first thing is to recognize why be exceptional in the first place. Because I'll start with the negatives of pursuing excellence or being exceptional. Is that it first of all, you have to not be in your comfort zone. It's extremely uncomfortable because you are pushing beyond the norm, and this is why they call it exceptional, because you're somewhat an anomaly, right? You're something of, that's not with the norm. You're not really conforming to what everyone is doing. So ultimately, you will be perceived in some instances negatively, right? Not only will you be perceived negatively in some instances, and also sometimes as a result of that success that comes out of it, you will be uncomfortable because either you have to wake up earlier, you have to apply yourself a lot more. You have to, I mean, some who are listening to this to this call, this conversation, might take something that Mulenga says, right, about walking up to a person who runs a $5 billion fund. They'll be like, I feel like there's already this negative self-talk most people have. That person's gonna turn me down. Oh, why should I do that? It's more comfortable to not do that. And sometimes the mind justifies why we shouldn't do certain things. You always find that people look for every reason in the book. I didn't call you because you're busy. I'm like, how do you know I was busy? I mean, people who shoot their shot get what they desire. I mean, we've seen it in recent days. Obviously we had an election recently. You see people on social media and so on shooting their shots at the president. Next thing you hear, they're singing at the inauguration. So I mean, what I'm trying to say is that's just a small example, and that is one of many. Now you've got people who we're all one degree of separation between ourselves and those who can enable us to be successful, right? Our next job opportunity, our next business opportunity is staring you in the face. The person is a fellow Zambian, it's a human being, but there's this impression that, this is a big person, I can't approach that person. So it really takes you coming out of your comfort zone to do certain things. And that's it's not comfortable. So why am I saying this? Is because the thing that would trigger you to be exceptional is recognizing that the pain of staying the same, should be much greater than the pain of change. That's, to me, that's what triggers change. That's what triggers pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. Most people who are comfortable where they are not going to move, are not going to, succeed beyond certain limits. They'll conform with everything else. And by the way, I never talk down about anyone who's not pursuing a certain degree of success. To each his own, right? Sometimes it's cool if somebody wants to live a life that is not deemed to be a successful one, so be it. But those who are in pursuit of success and to be exceptional, you have to really go beyond the limits, stretch yourself, get uncomfortable, get comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's ultimately what will make you successful. And, and understand why. So let me give you a couple of examples. When you recognize the pain of being this, and I always reference pain when I talk about people pursuing success and changing, because typically the the thing that gives you a reason to do things in a consistent manner, that makes you like, Lombe was talking about, recognizing where he's somewhat flawed in that shorter attention span. I think I probably have the same thing.
Right.
But created a reward, creating a reward system for getting, himself to read more, but there's like, why go through all that trouble in the first place? Most people think about that, but there's an innate reason that he's recognized that, you know what, I need to read. If I don't read, this is the possible outcome. I'll be incapable of achieving my dreams. So it goes back to your why. And one of my first mentors, who I think was part and parcel of changing my mindset and enabling me to do the things I ended up doing, was one who first of all told me that before you embark on any endeavor, whether it be entrepreneurial, career, you name it, you ask yourself why. Why does it matter to you? And it should never be financial. It should never be something that just gives you satisfaction. It should be deeper than that. It should be connected to the pain, to the recognition of the inadequacy. Like for me, I'll tell you, I'm governed by the feeling of the inadequacy of being a sub-Saharan African, a part of the world which houses the poorest people on the planet. The indignity of that is a huge bother to me. The feeling that we live in a world that has numerous inequities, and if I were to continue to say be same way or not strive to be exceptional, then the way we are perceived, and I'll tell you why this matters, because when I was studying, you talk about, and those of you who've heard my TED talk, heard me say something like about this. Sorry, I'm going to introduce you to something. Come. So everybody say hi to Sansa. This is my little girl. Say hi. Sorry, okay, that you can go. Okay, she came to say hi. All right, I'm explaining to the people. some good friends who are listening, who want to hear a thing or two.
She'll be our next guest on the webinar. We'd love to have her as our next guest.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So she came to say good night. Okay, good night. All right, see you later. Bye. Okay, so she's two. Where was I? Yeah. Train of thought back in place. I was in a part of the world where you show up as an African. I'm sure Mulenga might be experiencing this right now. There's this impression like, oh man, first of all, the moment you introduce yourself as African, they're already feeling sorry for you. Now imagine how that feels. It's like, oh man, like where you come from probably sucks. Your people are starving. So I've got this thing where I'm bothered by things that are unfair. There's a sense of injustice, and of course there's numerous reasons for why things are the way they are, but to be part of the change that enables the world to be better, I feel like I need to be part of that. And it starts with me. It's like they say, charity begins at home. So in order for one to influence the change of mindset, influence the success of others, influence the way Africans are perceived, I think it is extremely important that I pursue certain goals. I stand out in a certain way. I prove against the odds that even as a young person, I could make it within the corporate world at a very high level. And to me, that drove me. And that was more important than anything else. And everything else becomes a byproduct, whether it be money, you name it. So that's the somewhat long answer to the reason what essentially inspires my personal pursuit of being exceptional and leading a life that has excellence. And everybody who's on this call who has a sense of why they want to be successful has something that burns within them. It could be the fear of having gone through difficulty, maybe poverty, seeing family members struggle, not having, access to 3 meals a day, things like that. And the pain, the discomfort. And so really, to sum everything up, make discomfort your ally, make your pain your driving force for why you need to get to the next level, and recognize that it's far much better to go through the discomfort of changing than the discomfort of staying the same.
Right. Thank you so much. So
sure.
You even answered my next question. I was about to ask what we need to do in order to be successful, in order to be at the top. But I'd like to ask about why it's important to have a clear vision, you know, in order to succeed. Because, okay, I can speak for myself. Like personally, I'm someone who sees myself doing 99 jobs. But
Mhm.
then why is it important to just have a clear vision, like focus on one thing that's, you know, that's going to help you succeed in life and in your career?
Because of competence. So it's the idea of doing multiple things is a very, it's almost logical, right? It's logical, but it's irrational. The idea that if I have 5 businesses, I will make more money. If I have 5 XYZ, but one thing we don't realize, and when you read a lot of books, a lot of biographies, particularly about successful entrepreneurs, you find that they had one business that made them successful. They were known for one thing. Whether you're talking about Google, Facebook, Gillette, Ford Motor Car, Vera Wang, and you name across any global brand, Apple, you find that the founders, the entrepreneurs were literally specialized in one area. And that's where they put all their heart, their attention, down from Thomas Edison to you name it. So what tends to happen is people, and most people push back, say, no, how about Elon Musk? Well, Elon Musk actually also um, started out with one line. In fact, if anything, he's moving from the same industry, building up businesses, building them up, focusing all his energy on it, selling and moving on to the next. And what's following him is a certain uh, capacity, right? Financial capacity that can now enable him to deploy resources to invest in certain things, but is ultimately focusing on one. So people have to recognize that when you focus your energy on one thing, you're essentially you're building competence, and competence ultimately enables a degree of mastery. Mastery is what creates great products and great services. That's what now makes an Apple product what it is. If you think of why is, let me think of something that's amazing in this world. You know, why is Samsung the way it is? Why is Cristiano Ronaldo the way he is? His competency is in football. Yeah, he might model in underwear once in a while, but ultimately the thing that he's doing is on a daily basis, practicing his dribbles, doing his free kicks and so on, and has done it for such a consistent period of time that has developed enormous competence and has succeeded in that area. I also like to use the Beyonce example, right? Somebody who has an incredible work ethic. She applies herself, whether it be practicing the dancing, writing the songs, and just everything that's associated with what she's producing, which is entertainment products, right? From videos to music and so on. So the point I'm trying to make is I see the same thing from an investment standpoint. You know, I sit in an investment firm, I see entrepreneurs with multiple businesses. I've never seen any of those succeed. The ones that are focused are the ones that build it. Even when you look within Zambia, the people who founded Trade Kings. Trade Kings are spawned into different businesses, but you find that it grew to a certain scale where there's financial capacity, where each division is handled by a niece, nephew, cousin, son, you name it. And this is what it is. And you don't have a lot of that within our communities, particularly as Zambians, but there's a lot of reasons for that. Some of it is acculturation, some of it is history, but that's changing. This is why we're having these conversations. So the issue of having a clear vision, clarity is key. This is why a lot of people talk about, let's say pitches. A pitch should always be very short. And the shorter the pitch, the more you know how much the person knows about their business. When you ask a question about the market, right? So there's been a few sound effects in the background. I hope it doesn't bother you too much. So when somebody comes to me with a business idea or has a business, and I ask them a very simple question. So okay, so how much money do you need? You find that many people don't have the answer to that question because they know they need money, but they don't know exactly how much. Or in the event that they know how much, they don't know how they're going to use it, or they don't know how that money is going to make the business grow, or how it will enable their market share to grow, or how they'll increase their revenues, or all those things. But where there's clarity is where you imagine getting to a point where you know that your dream is to make sure that there's Zambia has 90% clean water. Say you want to do a private water utility company, and instead of people digging boreholes and so on, you do a private piping system, and ultimately you want to make sure that you are taking market share away from, let's say, Lusaka Water Storage or something along those lines. But where your vision is clear from a holistic perspective, but you've also articulated that, this is what I'll charge, this is the price point, this is the customer base, and this is how it will grow into different towns and so on and so forth. That's just an example of where there's certain things that you should be able to address without even having to think too much or to say, and wait. So, and the more you reflect on it, the better. And I really like something that Lombe said about self-reflection, where when you find where you have a shortcoming, you think, okay, you have to you iterate, you do something again, you change the approach, and you continue to progress, because it's not a straight line. So even getting to a point where you have clarity and of your vision, it takes time, because you need to sort of make a whole lot of mistakes, right? And then when those mistakes manifest themselves into actual mistakes, most people quit. But the goal should always be to learn from it and reapply and sort of either bring in the right competencies or change direction or something along those lines. So that's answer to your question.
Okay, so it's currently 19:06, and we wouldn't want to run over because we had said this would end after an hour and 15 minutes, even though I wouldn't mind extending this session. So right before we get into the chat and read people's questions so that you can answer them, we have 2 more questions for you, Jito. So you've done a TED Talk on defiance. I'm aware that you've done a TED Talk on defiance. So why is it important to be defiant, and what inspires you to be defiant?
Because I hate the status quo. And defiance is where you literally are defying something, you're opposing it. If you don't like the state of affairs of any circumstance, could be your own life, right? Say you're having financial difficulties. Say you've been raised in a family, and I'll tell you where my defiance started, is when I was a kid, I had, uncles and, our parents, our elders, who used to kind of be irritated by my ambition, right? And they were irritated by a certain level of confidence that I had, because I wanted to grow fast. I wanted to be successful. I wanted to be given certain responsibilities. But a parent in our African context would say, wait, you're a child. You can't give you that. Now, what that does is that it stifles your ability to grow and really, like our friends in the Western world. I mean, by the time some kids are like 18, they're already working, sometimes even as a waiter or something along those lines. And they've got a certain level of independence, and they move out of their houses sometimes, and in fact, in most cases. And you find that by the time they're in their mid-20s, they've already gone a certain way, because that's where things like work ethic is built, budgeting, planning your life. Here we're coddled, you're embraced, and you're told to essentially to sit down, be quiet, and be taken care of. That takes away a lot, I feel, of building a growth mindset, being ambitious, motivated, because you're always told to keep quiet, and so to me, I somewhat defied that. And to a large extent, it wasn't something that was well received. But later on, they appreciate, because they benefit from it somehow. And now they see it differently. So for me, defiance is finding it unacceptable that in my perhaps cultural setting, certain things are the way they are. You could also say the same for the way perhaps women in the rural settings can't go to school because they have to do the cleaning, they have to go get the water from the river, whatever the case, and then maybe the boy will go to school, and that's just what it is. So there's certain things that you have to defy in order for society to be better. So it's not just from an individual perspective, even from a country perspective. I think what happened on August 12th was an act of defiance. The youth of Zambia decided that, we don't like the status quo, we're going to change it. And they exercised their democratic right, and they prevailed. So that's the reason why defiance is important. It's to recognize the things that you are not happy with and not comfortable with, and taking action to remediate it, right? To solve that particular problem. And going back to the global context, I'm sorry, I don't want to go too far or take too long.
No, that's
I hate the fact that Africa is as poor as it is, controlling 3 to 5% of global GDP, when we are more than 15% of the global population, or controlling 1% of global wealth. And I feel like those are the reasons why we have such issues. Even people of African descent who are in the US get beaten by the cops, treated in a very unbecoming manner. Because I also feel, and it's a theory, it's not yet to be proven, but I feel that people are treated based on their economic standing, right? The world is a very unfair place. So the only way we can solve that is to defy it by us, pursuing in a very aggressive way trade policies and so many other things that enable a better equilibrium in the world. So that's really in a nutshell why defiance is such an important thing to me personally.
Thank you. I love that. So if you had the ability to go back 20 years in time, what would you say to that young and obviously defiant and ambitious Jito Kayumba?
Yeah, you know what? I would first and foremost tell him that you will discover in the future that God is so real. I'm sorry, I'm going all preachy, but I'll have to say this because it's a fundamental part of my life. And the things that he will do, not just in your life, but the way he will reveal himself is extraordinary. So continue to have faith that no matter what challenges that you are going through, that you put your faith in him. Of course, you do your best and then he will do the rest. Recognize what you want to do, what matters to you. Be consistent. Of course, be around the right people, associate with people who are progressive. Of course, we live in a world where a significant number of people are telling you negative things. They're telling you can't make it. They're telling you all sorts of things. But focus on associating with those who add value into your life through knowledge, through whatever they could add that can enable you to progress. And it's also important to give, to be a giver of not just knowledge, but whatever you can give that makes the world a better place. Because ultimately, I know, maybe sound a bit corny, but the fact is, we as Africans are Ubuntu oriented, right? We believe in the interconnectedness of one another. Our well-being is tied to the well-being of others. And we need to, in a very intelligent, clear way, find ways to systematically improve the living conditions of those who are less able to provide for themselves. So what I'm not just talking about, maybe creating a socialist society or communism, something like that, but I'm just saying that there's ways in which we can empower one another. And I think this is one of the steps. And this is why I love to speak to people as I'm speaking today. And that's one of the things I would tell my younger self is think not just about your path and what you're going to do for yourself. Think about what value you can create for others, and you'll be blessed as a consequence. So yeah.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you
Sure.
so much. We really appreciate it. So at this point in time, we're going to get one or two questions that are in the chat. But if you haven't heard anything, just remember to eat chocolate in the library. School is opening next week. We need to carry chocolate to the library so all of us can pass. All right, so before we get into the questions, I have a question which is open to all three of our panelists. So it's a question on what to post on social media, because we've seen from Mulenga's experience that he just used Twitter to connect to so many people. So my question is, what do you post on social media? Because, okay, like there's this trend of people walking on empty crates of Fanta. And for me, I kind of want to try that, but I don't know if something like that could end up ruining my career, So I just wanted to ask, what do you think people should be posting on social media that won't ruin their life or ruin their career? We can start with Mulenga.
Is that directed to me or to Jito?
It's to everyone, but we'd like to hear what you have to say.
No, I think Jito should be is in the right place to actually answer this question.
All right.
Okay, and I hope I'll be supported by Lombe when it comes on. But first of all, people misunderstand this thing about being careful what we post. It's not about stopping people from having freedom of speech, right? I've been challenged on numerous occasions for saying this, but I'll be completely honest with you. So one, remember that we are all a brand, okay? So whatever you want to brand yourself as, that is how the world will perceive you, and that is what you attract. If you say, for example, look, a challenge, working on crates of, I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, I post all sorts of random things. Of course, yes, I do, stuff that is either motivational, all sorts of random things, but sometimes I'm in the gym because I enjoy gym. But when I started out my career, I was always very serious because my goal was I wanted to be taken seriously in the corporate world. So by the time I turned 30, I became the youngest director in a publicly listed company, which is Airtel. On the whole, basically, not just in the country, but from a publicly listed perspective, the youngest director on, in Sub-Saharan Africa. That came because people were not perceiving me as a kid. They were perceiving me as a serious person because I was talking about serious things. Had I posted me chilling with a bottle, whatever,
walking on the crates.
No. I don't know about walking on crates. I don't know anything about that. But dissing people, being rude, getting involved in these wars that people sometimes get. People say this person is not at that level. I can't employ them at that level. So you have to understand, depending on how you want to be perceived, that's how you portray yourself. There are some cases where it's okay if my accountant is, if he gets in Twitter, well, I don't care, right? Or but the one thing that I feel like is representative of who we are is the things that we. So let me give you an example. Why on our CV? Why is there references? Why do people ask for referees? They're going to pick up the phone and ask, "Hey, how is Rhoda? Rhoda Kakoma? How is she doing? Is she a good person? Is she a rude person? Is she going to fit within my corporate culture?" Because there's some people out there who are very toxic, like extremely toxic, and that toxicity, you don't want it to affect the productivity of your office. So you could find it out on Twitter. All I have to do is check. I was like, you hired this person. They're going to get on with my team. So as uncomfortable as that is to share, and because it almost feels like, oh, we're being watched, we can't be free. I'm gonna be what you call this, faceless Twitter, so I can diss people for free or Aish. I'm like, but why do you have to diss people in the first place? Anyway, so that's the reason. Depends on what you want to achieve, and how you want to be perceived, and how you want to be branded. That's my take.
Yeah, I'll probably add something with what Jito said. So Jito once put up a video, and I remember a lot of people are telling me, no, I don't agree with what he's saying, blah, blah, blah. So for me, really, I was indifferent. I was like, that doesn't matter. But when I was to America, I was told to submit my username on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so for them, it was very important. And 3 days later, I noticed someone was doing my LinkedIn and mission officers. I was like, oh, okay. And I had to make my Instagram public so that they could see what I post. So some people noticed some photos. I had to really get rid of them. The time I was getting a visa, and probably that was the most important thing. They wanted to understand what I post, and I remember that's the question. I wanted to see if I'm a person that's going to be writing something about Trump or anything like that. So they asked for my username on Facebook. So I think it's very fundamental to watch what. So that's why I really have restricted my. I post certain things on WhatsApp. So you really want to watch out for that. But you post, for example, I go and have a beer and I'm with a few friends of mine. I look who viewed my status. I find 3 potential ministers, in God. So we really need to see what we post.
All right. Thank you for that. Now to go into our chat section.
Wait, could I say one thing?
Before that, does Lombe have anything to say?
I'm so sorry.
It's fine. I'll just have a brief point because Jito touched on a lot of the points that I was going to say. It's kind of like a pure balance that I have to say between Mulenga, where Mulenga was coming from and kind of where Jito was coming from as well. Because I kind of see it as it is your brand. So at the end of the day, you can choose to be like an Elon Musk who sometimes he's tweeting things that can literally be to his detriment. But at the same time, the shock value alone is putting his company and keeping his company in headlines. So keeping that consistency, like I think the main thing is just keeping consistency. Because if you shift and change, let's say there's a controversy, then you delete your Twitter, you know what I mean? You should never cave in. So you should make sure that as long as you keep that consistency, you should literally just be you and be able to be you. But at the same time, obviously, I'm always a believer that there's certain elements of your life that you should always keep private, because you never know how people will react or how people will deal with that information. A perfect example is I have a friend who lives in South Africa, and obviously she's in the wrong in this situation, but she wanted to go to Cape Town for the weekend. So she told her work, she explains to her work that, she had got, a member of her family had recently gotten COVID. So she went off and took the flight to Cape Town on that Friday. And then she posted it on her Instagram. And then one her workmates reported her to her boss and was like, this person is not with COVID, she's in Cape Town. So like, obviously you should be very, I think you should make sure that you have a target audience as well, and you should know who your audience is. Like I was saying, know who your audience is, know who's watching. So if you know that on your Instagram it's safe and everyone's gonna laugh and it's fun, and you can just post that crate challenge and everybody understands that it's a trend, then fair enough. But if you have a 60-year-old board member on your, he might think a bit differently of people falling on crates. So always know your audience and cater like towards that, but always make sure that in your brand you're just consistent, and you can just be yourself, because often being yourself is what leads in like what people resonate with.
All right, thank you for that. All of this time I was thinking, no, I need to post myself going for breakfast, but then I just have cornflakes for breakfast. Who wants to say that? Anyways, we have a question from Rhoda Kakoma, and this is directed to Jito. And it says, how do you manage a great work-life balance that allows you to leave room for family, even as you succeed more in life?
Alrighty, sorry, just getting my thing back in order. So yeah, work-life balance is very important. I think there's a time in your life, and this is why when you're young, do everything you can possibly to somewhat to make yourself, create yourself a life where you've got some level of financial stability, because that will give you options in the future. And to me, that's probably one of the best outcomes of being financially stable, is knowing that, what, I could spend time with my family, I could go on vacation, I can do blah, blah, blah. So, and I'm at a point where, of course, and I think I like what Lombe said is about knowing what to share. I'm very particular. That's why I don't share very personal stuff, right? You don't see me putting my family and so on, because hey, people can get at me all day. I don't really care, right? But it would suck if the people you love are being brought into the picture. I just thought I'd mention that. But I feel like I first of all, I'm a huge believer in family. I'm a huge believer in friendship, in camaraderie, in community. So you have to spend time with your loved ones, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles. It's part of what life's about. There's certain things that we value in this world that I think perhaps we overvalue. We overvalue some material things and so on and so forth. But I think it's so important to balance your life in a way where you dedicate, let's say, a certain day where you just don't work, or you take time off, right? So whether it be weekends or certain days where I just be with my daughter, just go to a park and just hang out, just the two of us. Because at the end of the day, I'm like, what's all of this about? Why am I hustling so hard? Why am I trying to succeed? Aside from the things that I talked about vision, I want to make sure that she's got an awesome life, right? And even when the inevitable happens, life does happen to all of us, and we will depart this earth at some point. You want to make sure that they're okay later on, and so it's all about recognizing that and cherishing every moment. And I feel like if you're gonna be with friends or family or things of that nature, there's such a fulfillment that comes from it, and you recharge. The brain is, and I get inspired. So even when I'm thinking about the next deal I'm gonna do or the next project, and it comes out of social engagements, family engagements, and the like. So schedule, that's one. Make sure that if it's 7 a.m. to 6 on the weekday, but maybe after 7, you block it off for things that are non-work related. And I think you can be very deliberate about that. And yeah, that's my advice on basically managing, work-life balance. Yeah.
All right, so from what I can see, I think we have 2 more questions. And there's one here from Cedric. If there's anything that I've left out before this, Jemima, please help me and read the questions after I'm done reading this one. So this one is from Cedric, and he is asking, what is the importance of having a mentor or mentors in your life for each speaker in the panel? So this is for each speaker on the panel.
So I think I'll go first because I have like commitment next 5 minutes. Well, I think for me, it's, mentors have actually been a very instrumental part of my life. Firstly, Jito. I've had other people. I had international mentors who have also been helping me find jobs here. Also helping me find where to stay, helping me with all these other logistics. So I think they've been very instrumental. For example, the first question I always ask, I remember the first time I met Jito, I asked him, if you were my age, what would you have done differently? Or what do you think? Exactly the same question you actually asked him, what do you think I should be concentrating on? And that sort of helped me understand that I should be really investing in these kinds of things. I should be having such kinds of friends. I should be behaving in this manner. Also, I'm now tending to have a mentor for, personality check. Seems to be very big here. Also, just differently, it's always, I think for me, it's always important to have people who've experienced life, have seen things that, you've never seen before, people who are like captains of the industry. And also very important to have people who you can resonate with, people who you can sort of like relate with. I have a friend of mine who reached out to this big guy in Zambia, and they were trying to have coffee, but it seemed these two people had, they were in two different worlds. So he tried by all means to reach out to this guy, but this guy was just, he was totally a different guy. So I think it's always important. I'm sure a lot of people have reached out to Jito, have always wanted to talk to him, but I'm sure he's always asking, this kid, when I sit down with him, what is it going to, what impact am I going to have on him? I've had people also talk about, mentors tend to tell you things that, for example, I've had mentors telling me I shouldn't do something, and I believed it was the right thing for me, right? So having a spectrum of mentors is like I went and asked different people, and I got a bigger picture of what I should do. And ultimately, that really helped me even with something that I was doing, which is something we're working on, which is quite big. So yeah, I think it's very important to have mentors, and they'll really steer you in the right direction.
All right, so Jito and Lombe, you can also add on to that if you've got anything to add on.
Yeah, my small point is essentially, I completely agree with Mulenga. And from my point of view, I always see a mentor as somebody who has gone through the experiences I'm yet to even know I have to go through. So you need to have that sounding board to be able to understand fully the issues that you're going to face. And when you're deep within them, it's always good to have somebody who you know and can trust to be able to just help you in those times and give you that advice. And that's a bond that you build over time, because I've found with my mentors, because I have a few mentors who are based here, and I respect some of the most respectable people in our society. And it surprises me how welcoming they are to even speak to me. And a lot of the mentors, I share a few mentors with Mulenga as well. So it's I'm so surprised that these people, you meet them and they're so willing to speak to young people, because not many young people actually seek proper mentorship here in this country. So I think it's a new phenomenon that a lot of the older generation are really keen to address, because there's really a disconnect But I don't believe that it's a disconnect that can't be solved without conversation. I find that often my mentors learn a lot from my perspective. Even though I'm learning much more, they still learn, like, in a lot of circumstances, like their customers will be young people, their businesses may be targeted to the wider public. They may not have access, the same social media access that I do. So like even in the smallest thing that you can contribute, the best of mentors understand that even a young person can contribute as much to them as they are contributing to you. So I think that mutual relationship and that mutual learning is the best way to structure that your life. And I found myself structuring a lot of my friendships like that after gaining mentorships. So that mutual exchange of knowledge.
That's perfect. In fact, it's a perfect segue into what I was going to say. Mentorship, you have to remember, is a relationship. It's a friendship, and treat it as such, because mentors, and I'll tell you what sometimes becomes really awkward, is when somebody approaches you and says, "Could you be my mentor?" And they don't have, first of all, typically a person who's in a position to be a mentor is typically a successful person. So time is probably not on their side. But the one thing that makes a mentor make time for a potential mentee is seeing how serious that person is about what they want to learn. So the first thing a potential mentee should always have in mind is actually an actual plan of what they want to learn or what they want to derive from that mentor. And of course, mentorship is a leakage, right? So it's a good thing to have. And I like, I think both Lombe and Mulenga touched on it. You don't have to go through some of the things that others have gone through. You can bypass those things by learning. That's why it's good to be coachable and keep your lips sealed and your ears wide open, so that you're learning as much as you can from people who've walked a certain path and have achieved certain things, because they certainly do have insights. But again, how do you get their time? How do you get their respect? Is by having something to offer as well. And I appreciate the fact that they mentioned that you must be of value to them. Certain people who were my mentors, who are now proper homies, they call, "Hey, listen, I need advice on this, I need advice on that," because I was worth their time at some stage. So I think that's extremely important to note. So that's it from my side.
All right, so unfortunately we can't take any more questions, so we'll just take one last question and then we close because we're over time. So there is one question here from, oh God, I lost it. Okay, so from Elina Piri, and she's asking, is it the right time for first-year students to engage in internship, or it's quite difficult to balance up academically? So maybe Lombe can answer this one for us.
Yeah, I can answer this, and obviously I was going to say this at the last bit, but I think let me say that now since we've overrun. Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think the younger that you start getting experience, the better, because it's like as is like the biggest, I think one of the most mentioned issues that people have with employment is that a lot of employers ask for experience, but where's a person supposed to have received that experience? And it's in that pursuit of like things like the free jobs that Mulenga was talking about, those student internships where it's just kind of like you're getting to know, like, you know what I mean? Like you're given a chance and people are letting you have that chance to prove yourself, but like in a there's a no risk, it's a no risk situation. It's not like you're an employee and if you lose your job, it will reflect badly on you forever, but it's just that opportunity to test it out and to learn about yourself in that work environment. We're actually doing a student internship program at Financial Insight, and we're actually bringing on like young financial writers. And essentially the predicate of our student internship plan is literally just, you come and you write whatever you like. And if we like what you write, you get published to all of our readers. Because it's literally like, I started writing when I was 18 and I was doing evaluations of the stock market at the age of 18. So there's no one who can't do that. And there's no one who can't evaluate that, those same messages. There's no age, is literally, it's not a barrier as long as the talent is there. So I think strive out for that and never let anyone convince you that you can do something because of your age. It's just about taking that risk and taking that first step. And that is what starts with the student internship.
I think Jito should be the last person to say it. I think we have a last question. Someone's asking Jito something interested in the business. I think from Loretta. I think the advice on that would be, I think in some of the things I should have done in school is that I should have, interned more, because kids in my class, for example, all have like 3 internships from first year. And when I was back in school, I was thinking, no, probably I'll start interning when I'm in my 4th year or something like that. But it also I think what really matters is how far you want to go in life, but if you're in 4th year, I think you need to start looking for opportunities right now. If you are graduating with a distinction, if you're graduating with merit or credit, I think you want to position yourself while you're getting internship, because I think it matters more for companies. From some of the companies I've worked for, I think what really matters is not the fact that they want to help you, the fact that they want to make money. And if you're going to help them make money, you need to have a bit of experience on your, under your belt. So I think you want to start reaching out to people like you guys are so, having Jito every time, you can always ask him, always shoot him a message on Twitter, ask him around how he can get an internship. I'm sure he would always reply. Just like he's always replied to these guys who posted. So I think you want to reach out to more people. Have used UNZABECA. I think I utilized UNZABECA. I was actually supposed to have interned for World Bank immediately after I was done with Kukula, but COVID was still very real. But it was because of UNZABECA. UNZABECA hosted an event, and I spoke, and there's a lady who liked what I was saying. So, I was supposed to have interned there. After graduating, I started working for another firm. As I was there, another mentor of mine introduced me to some Zambian who works for Goldman Sachs, who's in Dubai, and he wanted me to start interning there, but school was up, so I couldn't go there. But it was really because I was very, very focused on saying, hey, I need to get a bit of, I need to have experience under my belt, because I knew that for me to compete at that level, I needed to have certain things under my belt. So I think it's fundamentally very important for you to have that, for you to start now, reaching out to people, constantly just, also updating your CV. Coming to America, I've discovered that there's a website that I didn't know in Zambia. So for people who are interested in how to update their CVs, there's a website that the school uses, which is you input your CV and it tell you how well your CV is. Are there any typos? Which institutions you can apply to? I think that would be very helpful for people that are interested in that. I've actually just sent you guys my email. If you're interested in that, please just shoot me an email, and I can always help with that.
All right, thank you so much, Mulenga. Yes?
No, I was just saying that there was a question that was directed towards me, which could be a closing thing, right?
Yes, it's a question from Loretta, which asks what your take is on investing in a business with a close friend.
It should not be, the investment should not happen on the basis of them being a close friend. It should be based on the fundamentals. It should be based on the viability. Otherwise, your friendship will be compromised. One of the hard lessons I've learned in my life is doing business with friends or investing with friends. If you don't have a relationship where you can draw the line between the personal and the business, the business will affect your relationship. That's why with my current business partners, we're such a great relationship, because our relationship was founded on business, then the friendship came later. Those who are friends first and go into business, it's rare that it works. I'm not saying you don't, but think about the business first, and align your expectations, because things that go wrong are based on lack of expectations. And usually because it's friendship, it means that there's emotion. Same thing with family. People invest in things because, it's my homie, I like the guy, I trust the guy, but, or him or her may be off, may not make the right decision. You lose money, and then next thing, you fall out on that basis. So yeah, that's my advice. draw the line, be more on the business side than on the friendship side, or at least make your decision on the basis of that friendship. Now,
Thank you so much, Jito. Loretta, I hope that answer is clear, and I hope your question has been answered fully. At this point in time, I would like to close the meeting. I would, what, you people, if I had all the time in the world, I would spend it in this webinar. But I understand that we have gone a little over time. So thank you so much to all of our panelists. Thank you, Lombe. Thank you, Mulenga. And thank you, Jito, for taking time out of your day just to, to impact the youth. Thank you so much. And to everyone who attended this webinar, we're truly grateful for your audience, for listening. Thank you so much. And in case you'd like to get in contact with our panelists, if you're in the WhatsApp group for the internship committee, the details will be shared a little later on. And before we close, I'm the one who designed the poster. So in case you need any graphic designer, Jemima Chella from the internship committee is the girl to go to.
Sorry,
Right.
someone is asking how
Yes?
to get in touch with Jito. I've seen it in the questions.
All right, we'll leave that information in the WhatsApp group of the internship committee. I hope that's okay.
sure, no worries at all.
Oh, okay.
Who's that? Who wants to get in touch?
From Loretta. She's asking
Oh,
how
okay.
she can get in contact with you.
Okay, let me just send a quick message, and I'm sure you share in your group.
Yes.
Oh, someone is saying they're not in the group. So yeah.
Okay. Let me have a look. Okay. All right. So I've sent a message. Okay, you know what? I'll be honest with you. Sometimes I get so many calls with this email. I'm super easy to get to. So I put my personal email. It's reliable. I respond, and in some instances, we have conversations over the phone. And then obviously Twitter is another avenue. You can just at me, ask a question, and that's yeah.
I think you should all follow Jito on Twitter. He really posts really good content. I think you should all follow.
Really inspiring stuff. Really inspiring stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure Lombe and everyone who's on Twitter can agree with me that Jito really does post some good content. Please follow him on Twitter. Yeah, I've actually introduced all my classmates saying, yo, you should follow this guy. His back is dope. It's from Zambia.
Well, thank you. Those who are not easily triggered, you'll be fine.
And if you're not on Twitter, open a Twitter account to follow Jito.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, everyone. I hope you have a lovely weekend. I hope you guys are ready for school next week. And it's been a pleasure having everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Thank you so much.